Hi YouTube, this is Joe Calton with Calton Cutlery. You can visit me on the web, caltoncutlery.com. Okay, so we're going to continue our knife edge retention tips. I think this is going to be number 13. Now this part right here, it's not really a tip as so far as what you can do with a knife that you already have to get better edge retention out of it, but more it's kind of a thought process on picking your next knife, or picking the the class of knives that you think might best suit your purpose. Now this one right here, I'm gonna compare knife edges with lathe tooling. Okay, now you guys know that I've got an old South Bend metal lathe, right? 9x36, great old lathe, right? Especially for somebody like me. Now I do use the lathe in the shop. It's not, it kind of comes and goes. Sometimes I'll be on that lathe just dang near every week for 2 or 3 months, and then the next thing you know, it'll sit and get all dusty, and I hadn't used the thing in 6 months. I use the thing mostly to make the pivot bushings on folding knives. I've made wheels for my belt grinders. I've done a couple of Form 1 silencers for my hunting rifles. And repairing shop tools, things like that, right? So I'm kind of sort of pretty much a rank beginner as far as with the metal lathe. I mean, I can, generally speaking, make that lathe do what I need it to do to accomplish whatever task I need, but I really wouldn't call myself like a very good lathe machinist type guy. And there is where the great part is about the two main classes of tooling. Okay, here we've got a carbide cutter. Okay, this is just a square cutter. Pretty much what this is just some mild steel with a carbide insert that's been brazed to the mild steel. Okay, so the carbide is only 1/8 of an inch thick and probably 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch, something like that. They sell these in packs and in kits, and they are. I think a lot of people just use these till they're dull and then they throw them away. This other one right here, this is just a chunk of high-speed tool steel. It says, oh boy, if I can get the light caught right, M35 and 5% cobalt. Okay, that part right there, I'm not too sure that it really matters as long as it's a high-speed tool steel sort of a deal. And this is just a chunk of high-speed tool steel. You can shape it however you want. Right now I've got it cut to a 60-degree angle and a point, and then I've got the side of it cut out. I was probably threading something, that's typically what you use, and I was threading something to a hard shoulder, maybe if it was a rifle muzzle, something like that. Now, these are both great tools and they both have their places, right? As great as carbide is, as long as it holds an edge, because it will hold an edge longer than high-speed tool steel. It's got very, very good edge retention. I would pick this any day of the week and twice on Sundays over this, okay? The biggest reason for that is that this is very, very easy for me to sharpen, shape, and maintain, all right? The carbide, the only thing, I've got 2 ways of sharpening this stuff here in the shop. One of them is with the little green Dremel bit wheels, okay? And you sit there and you hand hold the dang thing, with your Dremel bit, grinding it down to where it's at, and it takes forever. And then I can also sharpen it on my silicon carbide wheels on my hard wheel grinder. And it's pretty hard on those. I mean, it'll sharpen it, but it wears the wheel away pretty fast. This stuff right here, the high-speed tool steel, when this goes dull, and it goes dull a little bit quicker than the carbide, but not as much as you might think. This, I can take it over to any belt grinder, any disc grinder, anything I got here in the shop, and touch it up. Or shape it, for that matter. Just dip it, keep it cool, and grind it. You can do 220 grit J-Flex aluminum oxide belt will sharpen this stuff up just fine. That same belt will not even touch this stuff. So this stuff also is really hard to change the angles and reshape, which leads me to the next thing about carbide versus tool steel. I told you that I'm pretty much a beginner when it comes to working on the lathe, right? Which means I screw up on a regular basis. Run something at the wrong feed rate, at the wrong speed, and you know, it just trashes edges out. So I spend quite a bit of time sharpening tooling, pretty much just because I don't have the experience, you know, to run the lathe as efficiently as somebody who's been doing it, you know, day in, day out for the last 5 or 10 years. When you wreck an edge on high-speed tool steel, the wreck isn't as bad, okay? It's more like a little fender bender, right? So pretty much you wreck the edge and you're like, yeah, okay, well, you take it over to the grinder, and in 2 or 3 minutes, you know, you're back to a completely reshaped and resharpened edge and ready to go. With the carbide bits, typically they blow out, okay? You, if you run them too hard, or if you you weren't paying enough attention on your power feed or something, and you smack them into something, the whole dang thing just blows out. I mean, not the whole insert, but you know, the 30 thousandths off the end might just completely pop off and shatter. Okay, now when that happens, now you've got to, you know, reshape the entire edge, and that takes frickin' forever with this carbide. I don't typically use these ones all that much. The ones that I use the most are the little boring bars that have got like a little carbide thing on there, and just because that was what I ordered. I haven't gotten around to ordering you know, high-speed tool steel boring bars, the little ones, you know, to be able to get in and bore something out. And those things, you know, a lot of times you're working blind, and you kind of got marks on you, because I don't have a readout or anything on my lathe. It's all manual, and so, you know, I got like a little mark on the boring bar right here, and so when it's going in there, if it goes in and, you know, I miss that mark, or the 2 cuts before I stopped just short of the mark, and then this time I stopped in the middle of the mark, it'll run that carbide bit right up inside the ledge in there and shatter the end, and then it's 10-15 minutes, you know, to tune it up. The same thing happens, well, I don't have any carbide knives, but if you run the hardness up too high on your pocket knife, your kitchen knife, or whatever, the same thing will happen. In the grand scheme of knife hardness, and that'll be our next video, where you have it too hard, too soft, and, you know, perfectly in the middle, if you're shooting for perfectly in the middle, if you can't hit perfect in the middle, it's a little bit better to be a little bit on the softer side, okay? When an edge just deforms as it goes dull, it's way easier to bring it back than if it shatters or chips out or anything like that. And that'll probably lead us into our next video on edge hardness, and I'm trying to keep these videos under 10 minutes, so we'll go ahead and save that for the next video. So again, carbide versus high-speed tool steel on a lathe. It's kind of similar to a knife edge. Carbide will hold an edge longer, but when you dull it, it takes longer to bring the edge back. When you wreck it, it takes 10 times longer to reshape the edge and bring the edge back. High-speed tool steel, it'll probably get you about 80% of the edge retention that you get out of carbide, but it's much easier to shape, much easier to maintain, much easier to come back from wrecks and do you know, repair on it than it is carbide. So again, this is Joe Calton with Calton Cutlery, and visit me on the web, caltoncutlery.com. Hope you enjoyed the video, and we will see you next time.